The offer that every coach can always make is time together. So if you're like, I don't have my XYZ curriculum for my coaching program, you don't know what curriculum to use, or you've got a generic curriculum, but you don't feel like it's really reflective of you yet, then just start with what you have. Hello and welcome. My name is Amanda Kaufman, and this week I'm going to share with you one of my top strategies for helping people, making more connections, more money, gathering more leads, having a greater impact with my existing clients. So come on in. We're talking all about webinars today. Because seriously, this topic of having webinars is, I think, one of the cheat codes, if there is a cheat code, to building an incredible coaching business. So if you don't know me, if we're new, hi, my name is Amanda Kaufman, and I've been a consultant for 18 years. I've been an entrepreneurial coach for 8, and I have been on thousands of hours of video at this point. And when I started, I was video phobic. You know, you are welcome to go check it out on the Amanda Kaufman Show. If you go to YouTube at the Amanda Kaufman Show, you're going to see all the videos that I've done. I've done over 500 videos on YouTube so far. Maybe not all of them published anymore, but I very intentionally left my very first video up. And my very first video up there, you know, you go and you find it. It's all about how to start something. Because at the time, when I was like my very first time that video, I was so scared. Like if you listen really closely, you can actually hear my little baby, my newborn baby. He's going to be 8, that little baby, really soon. But when I was very first starting with video, you could hear him squawking in the background because I was doing it on my maternity leave because I felt the number one thing that you need to be successful with webinars, with online marketing, with a coaching business. I felt urgency to act. Okay? Urgency to act. So why so much urgency? Why would I take that beautiful time of maternity leave and spend any of it looking horrible on video? That's a great question. Let me tell you. I wanted this. Like I wanted to be sought out and sought after as a coach. That's what I wanted. That was the decision that I made. So you're going to hear me going forward talking a lot more about the decision, right? I had made a decision that I was going to leave my corporate job. I also made a decision that I was going to earn as much or more as an entrepreneur as I had working for the larger company that no longer felt aligned at the time, okay? I decided that the best way for me to get leverage was to model the success that I had seen so many before me have, which was they were on video. They were on video. They were teaching on video. They were leading on video. They were doing launches on video. Like even when they were on stage, I noticed like they were capturing every living moment on video. Fast forward to 2025, guess what? We're in a new age of the coaching, consulting, and education industry. And like, if I seem like I'm a little fired up about it, it's because I am. You know, I've decided that I want to be a part of this. I've decided that I want to support you. So every single week, I come live at 9 a.m. Central in the Clients Over Chaos community for Shizzle for sure. And also I'm doing it on Instagram right now because that's convenient. I've got like a little stand here. And I just want more of you to know that we do this. So yes, just DM me DWM if you need access to the community. Let's talk about webinars. Let's talk about why you need to start doing them immediately. All right. And I'm going to give you some like no duh answers so you can feel good about yourself. But I'm also going to give you some additional thoughts that might just be good to add to your conviction, your decision that you're going to do this, right? If you guys are feeling a little fiery on a Monday, shout out fire in the chat so that I know. Okay, webinars. I think of a webinar not as a Zoom call. So last week we hosted a 90 Days to Your Best You Ever webinar. And if you were there, shout out and let me know if you were there. Let me know if it was awesome, if you loved it. But it was such a pleasure to do it. And when I think about hosting a webinar, I think about literally rolling out my digital stage, getting on camera and serving, like as if we were in a seminar room together. And I had a stage that was 15, right? But I mean, I've hosted a lot of live events at this point in my career, through my business specifically. And you know what is so awesome about those events? It's the focus. It's the connection. Like the thing that a live event is going to have that your webinar might not have as much of, just to prepare you, is the camaraderie, the connection in the seats. The people going to lunch together and taking notes together and learning and growing together. Boy, but I would say that a webinar is a close second to those live event experiences. Why? Well, one thing, baby, focus. Focus. You get to focus on bringing your very best to other people. I wrote this down in my notes today. I'm like, this is like a best you spotlight. It's an opportunity for people without having to get on an airplane, without having to take time off of work, without having to spend thousands of dollars on hotels or Airbnbs or sleep with a bunch of strangers. They can see your best you. Okay? That's the opportunity in a webinar. So what is your best you? And I hope you're taking notes. Let me know in the chat if you're a note taker, right? Just shout out notes, because if you didn't know, I'm always on Mondays. I'm not just like, get ready with me. Let me tell you why you're wrong in your life. That's not my vibe. It's better if you just bring a notebook, because I promise you're going to come away with at least 3 things that you're going to wish you paid for. Okay. So when it comes to being spotlit in a webinar, I think the first thing is, what is your unique specialty? I see Terry taking notes. That's awesome, right? What is that unique you? Okay. Because look, here's the goodness truth, especially in 2025, people have choices. They don't just have choices, they have convenient choices. Okay. You had a choice today about which Instagram live you hopped onto or which community you were going to pay attention to. You had a choice about that. And here you are, right? Everybody has a choice. There's lots going on in any given moment. So why would they choose you, Pikachu? Seriously. Why would they choose you? And, I just took a bit of a weekend retreat myself, and I was walking and thinking in the forest with bad internet connection. It's like my favorite, right? I realized that the reason that people will buy from somebody like me is because they see themselves in me. And so it's my job, my duty, responsibility to show up as my very best self, whether I'm teaching you something super tactical, like how to do a webinar, which is what we're doing today, or whether I'm just popping in to do a social post, or I'm walking into a meeting for a networking event or a community or something like that. Okay. People are going to choose you because they trust you. They're going to choose you because they see an element of themselves in you, and they're going to go, right, I know I have a lot of options when I fly, but I'm going to choose that Coachy airline over this one because it really suits me. Now, here's the thing about your best you. I want you to think about this in 2 ways. And yes, you could use ChatGPT to help extract the best of you. And I want you to use 2 things in your prompts, okay? The first thing is I want you to ask ChatGPT, hey, ask me 20 questions or even 10 questions to get you started. Ask me 20 questions that will reveal what my emotional and innate talents and traits are. Emotional talents and traits. From what you know about me, ask me 20 questions that will really crystallize and clarify my beingness. Okay. So we're going to have the beingness side of your unique you that you're going to bring to your webinars, your content in general, but especially webinars. Okay. The second thing I want you to pop into your GPT prompt is, okay, now what am I tactically good at? So this is the doing side of you. This is where when you go to do the thing, it is so natural to you, you can almost get out of body with it. It's so natural to you that it feels like play, and everybody else sees it and they're like, that's my struggle, So I'll give you some examples from when I do this kind of reflection. I like to know my beingness, like who am I being? How am I emotionally showing up? How am I regulating? What's my personality like? That's all amazing. And most coaches are pretty good at that side. But what about tactically? What do you build in the world, right? What is it that you code? What is it that you do? What is it that you think through that is really different from other people that might be valuable? So you're asking ChatGPT, ask me 20 questions or 10 questions if you want to do the quick and dirty version to help identify how I best tactically contribute in the world. And this is more from a doingness. So the first one was a beingness, the second is the doingness. And either what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to distill both of those things, what you do and how you be, together to showcase that as the best version of you in your upcoming webinar. Okay? And also just like all the time, but especially for the purposes of being really great in a webinar. Okay? So here's the thing to know. Whenever you run this analysis, you do this diagnostic, you do the journaling session. By the way, I suggested using ChatGPT. You don't have to. You can just do this in a journal. The purpose and the benefit of doing this is that you are always getting better. So I want you to think of that last exercise as the best you snapshot. We're going to call that your best you snapshot. So right now, today, based on what you know, based on how you be, this is your best you snapshot. But I got to tell you something. Tomorrow morning, you're going to be better. Tomorrow morning, you're going to be better. Why? Well, you're going to be better because you've learned something in the last 24 hours. You're going to be better because you were challenged by something and you handled it, right? You're going to be better because you're going to reveal new things about you and you're going to make new decisions about yourself all the time that are going to fuel and add fire to the best of who you are, okay? And so it's always, always going on. One of the mistakes that I've certainly made, and I see a lot of people make when it comes to webinars, is they wait until they're better than they are. So I took myself out of the game of doing webinars for a very, very long time because I simply told myself my business wasn't big enough. I wasn't making enough money. It wasn't as impressive as the other guys, right? I've also done it with my body weight. I'll do it after I finish this workout trend. I'll do it after I hit a certain amount of weight. And here's the truth. None of that really matters because the only thing that you can do is your best. And I know that sounds cheesy on a Monday, but it's true. Your best version of you on April 21st, 2025 is a shadow of how awesome you are going to be in 10 years. Seriously, like, especially if you keep working at it, especially if you keep prioritizing being your best self. Okay. Like literally the first time I did a webinar, and again, like I don't have the webinar recording, but you can go back to YouTube. You can go back to my very first YouTube that I ever did to just kind of get a sense. Cause like I've shown that YouTube and I'm sitting there and I'm like cringe, like it's 5% of my capability that I have now, if that. And I've shown it to a lot of my clients and my clients will be like, it's not that bad. They tell me it's not that bad. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you are kind. But I mean, you're going to feel the same way. That's what I'm saying. If you've never done a webinar before, or if it's been a while, and certainly if you don't have a webinar practice or progressive improvement practice around webinars, buckle up, buttercup, right? Because you're probably going to go through major spurts of improvement. The key here is to stay seen. Stay seen. And again, if you feel like you're apologizing for who you are, where you are, how you are, that is actually the opposite of your confidence. If you're experiencing shame and guilt about who you are, where you are, and what you are, that is the actual opposite to confidence. So like lots of coaches come to me and they're like, I wish I had your confidence. I wish I had your consistency, they say. And you know why you don't have the consistency? Is because you don't believe the consistency is really important yet. You haven't made the decision. You haven't decided that it's important for you to be seen as you are, as you grow. And when you make that decision, it's like a switch, okay? It's like a big, big switch. Now, I knew when I went into this, I was like, dang, this is a little bit of a longer subject. And so what I've decided to do for you guys is I have a whole course. It's like a mini course. It's about 3 hours of content, but it has like really detailed like templates of emails that you can send, emails that you can send as reminders, a really detailed outline of exactly what you can include in your first master classes. And you can riff from there, you can grow from there. Now, normally that course is $297, but if you're here live and you want a copy of it, you don't already have it in your library from us, today only, I'm offering the Classy Masterclass Mastery class for $200 off. Right? So it is $97, but like I said, you get like way more than the outline I'm giving you today. So just send me the keyword classy in however you chat with me, and I'll make sure that you get the code so that you can access it if you're really serious and, but if you're good with this, then you're great with this. That's awesome. Okay. Let's talk about your webinar in terms of how it mechanically is going to go out, okay? So the first thing I always do with a webinar is I simply set the date. This is even before I set a topic, I set the date. And this is a done by date. Like I will have hosted my webinar on this date, no matter what, no matter the excuses, no matter what's going on. I've made a decision, and the decision is the date. So shout out date if you heard me loud and clear. Your first step is actually to declare a date. And you might be saying, Amanda, but what date? Like, should I do it in December? Should I do it in 3 months? 2 weeks. You only need 2 weeks because you're only going to promote the webinar for about a week, which gives you a week to get clear on the topic, get clear on the main takeaways you want people to have, get clear on the offer that you're going to make. And then when you write all the rest of your content, or let's be real, ask ChatGPT to help you write the rest of your content, you've got like a week to do it. And if you've used ChatGPT before, you know that it will spit out a quality something within like 2 minutes, right? So the big limiter on your time is the tactical build of your webinar. The big limiter is you talking yourself out of focusing on it. Bing bong, there it is. All right. So the first thing we do after we've set the date is we set the topic. And that's why at the beginning of this live, I was like, what's your best self, right? What is your best self offering? So if you've got ideas and you want to share them with me now, please tell me, like, what would your webinar be on? And your topic should be 5 words or less. 5 words or less. The biggest challenge I see once we get over kind of the whole confidence thing, the whole, am I good enough to do this? What if it's small? All the wrong questions, right? The best question is, who is your best self right now? And what can you share with the world? That's the best question. And then we're going to develop your invitations. So the longest runway I think that works in 2025 for a format like a webinar is typically going to be a week. And the length of your webinar, I think you're great going for 90 minutes. That seems to be a good sweet spot where you'll be able to cover a lot of good, crunchy topics. You'll have enough time to be able to address a Q&A if you'd like to, and of course, pitch an offer. Now, I say, of course, pitch an offer, and many of you are probably going like, what do you mean, of course? I don't even know what I'm offering. Well, let me give you just sort of the template to get started, if that's okay. Because everything that I teach, it's just a template to get started. You're going to tweak it. It's going to become yours. You and your ChatGPT are going to get together and you're going to be like, let's make this better than better. Let's beat Amanda. Let's do even better than her. That's cool, right? But what I found when it comes to AI outputs is that the outputs are very often determined by the quality of your inputs. And are you asking the right questions? Are you prompting it in the right way, right? So if we give it a bit of a template to start with that's already proven, that already has a pretty good return on effort, you're going to get more leverage out of your time in ChatGPT instead of starting from scratch. So, okay. So the invitation to your webinar, here's the mindset, okay? Oh, sorry, back to the offer. Real quick. The offer every coach can always make is time together. The offer that every coach can always make is time together. So if you're like, I don't have my XYZ curriculum for my coaching program. I've actually been thinking about putting together a workshop on that very subject. So just let me know if that is actually a roadblock for you or not. But if it is a roadblock, you don't know what curriculum to use, or you've got a generic curriculum, but you don't feel like it's really reflective of you yet, then just start with what you have, and you can always just do the generic output. But if you'd like a little more feedback on it, just let me know. Okay. So you're offering a consult call. And the reason why you're offering a consult call is that the consult is your opportunity to really listen to the person that you're helping in the webinar to take their goal to the next level, right? To take their goal to the next level. So even if you don't have it completely built out just yet, how many of you could take some time to build that? Or you could take some time to workshop that with a client live. All right. So we call that a consultative approach. You can do a consultative approach. If you feel really confident in the subject matter that they want help with, you can help them right there in the room. You don't need to have all of this like crazy levels of prep. Now, once you get your process down, I would recommend that as soon as possible, and Lynn is saying curriculum would be an amazing topic for us. Awesome. Thank you for the feedback. So once you have that, then we need to go back to like, well, what's the topic? Is the topic of your webinar supportive of the longer journey that people are walking on? And you might even just do a webinar that is overall about the journey that you take people on. Kind of think of it as like a movie preview walkthrough of what you help people with. Okay, so the topic should support that the offer that you make is a very logical next step for someone who's serious about going all the way, right? That's what you want to do with a webinar. I used to think that webinars were, kind of showy-offy. It was about having really flashy topics or sharing things that nobody's ever heard of. And what I realized in actual practice is most people don't really respond very well to things that are completely new, like 100% net new. I actually go for like 80% confirmation, 20% transformation. Why? Because when it comes to connecting with people, most people actually really do know what to do. They've already read books. They've maybe even worked with a coach before, or at least a therapist. They've actually worked on the goal a bit. So if you're trying to come in and be the savior of like 100% net new information, what ends up happening is you start talking about really like esoteric, just sort of fringe things that aren't necessarily helpful. And it doesn't engender, it doesn't get people to really agree with you on your point of view on anything. So then why would they agree with your point of view when it comes to working together in a coaching relationship? I think of like the 80% is more like a validation, a reinforcement, a reminder. And then of course you want to add your 20% because that's your best you. Your best you is going to bring those additional insights, those things that maybe not everybody knows. And it's going to bring your emphasis into the whole topic. Okay. So kind of that 80-20 rule. Is that helpful, y'all? I was hoping to share with you something you've maybe never heard before, but it's like 80% confirming what they already know and understand, and then adding that 20% of novelty that maybe they've never heard of before. Okay. So now that you have your topic, you can write your invitations. So I used to overthink this as well. I always thought like it has to be very, very official, and just keep it casual, boo. Right? Like think about if you were hosting a party, unless it's a wedding or something, you're not going to sweat the invitations too hard, right? If you're having like a 4th of July party or you're having a birthday party, you're probably going to just like tap your friend on the digital shoulder, whether it's sending them a text, sending them a message, sending them an email, whatever. And you're not going to overbuild it. You're just going to say this. Here's what you say to somebody like really directly. You say, hey, so I'm going to be doing this workshop on XYZ topic, and I thought of you because we were talking about this the other day. Should I send you a link so you can get the details? That's it. That's it. It's just acknowledging the person's interest because you had some other prior interaction. And by the way, if you're like, nobody's interested in me and I live in a hole and nobody talks to me, that's actually your first issue. Like we need to get you more social. We need to get you more engaged and loving with people around you. But also if you want a systemic way to do that, make sure that you let me know the word expert so I can tell you about our experts network and our Level Up program, because I decided this weekend I'm refreshing Level Up. So if you've already purchase Level Up, you've been a part of Level Up, you're automatically invited to the refresh sessions. If you've been thinking about joining us in Level Up, just make sure that you let me know the word expert. Okay. So you're inviting people, and ideally you want to set it up that you don't keep inviting people who have already said yes. So you're going to need to pay attention to who registered, or you can use automation to do that. That's what we do. We like to use automation to take care of that task, because the fewer things I have to look at every day, the happier Amanda is. So that's why we use a lot of automation. Then, of course, you're going to deliver the webinar. And so I did this as an experiment last week, because I was like, okay, over the years, I've up-leveled my content. I've up-leveled what I do. And so it meant that I was doing a workbook, and I was also doing the presentation slides, and I was also creating like resources. I was even getting to a place where I was starting to create a GPT that went with like every one of my topics and webinars. And last week I was just like, can we just end the madness for a second, Amanda, and just like get back to the core of who you are, what you do. And I delivered twice a completely extemporaneous means off the cuff, but not really, like had an outline, but I didn't have slides. I didn't have a workbook. I didn't have, like all these fancy bells and whistles. And actually that webinar performed better in terms of the outcome, which was making my offer and having people take the offer. That performed better than some of the others that I've had, where I had more people attending, more people engaging in the chat. Like it was an intimate webinar, both the evening and the daytime. And I ended up with more output by stripping it back and keeping it really, really simple. So what did that prove? That basically proved at a first level, if you have something that is genuinely helpful to people and you show up with a huge amount of energy to deliver upon that, and they're walking away with significant takeaways from the webinar, you don't have to have the pretty slides. You don't have to have the pretty notes. You don't have to have the whole thing scripted with your AI, right? You can just show up as your best you and deliver, and you will get really incredible results. Now, it can be nice to have that outline. It can be nice to have the slides to reference to, especially if you are beginning. You've got to remember, I've got thousands of hours of video under my belt. So, just kind of do what's right for you. And again, if you send me the word classy, I'll send you the link to the Classy Masterclass Mastery class if you don't already have it, with $200 off, just like as an aside on a Monday. And Lynn's sharing with us that Level Up is awesome. It really is. It's a really, really cool program, and it's all part of our Experts Network, which is our next level of coaches who are looking to serve and have impact in their way, right? And not be a copy-paste coach. Okay, so the key thing though with a webinar that I've found is so super important is your follow-up. So when I do follow-up, I like to segment my follow-up between the people who were there, the people who registered but didn't come, and the people who never registered. So I segmenting means splitting your list up among those things. And gosh, I wish I had time to go into the automation side of things. That's, again, really super cool if you can have your automation set up to automatically segment people. So, but again, it's the 3 buckets. And hey, if you've got like 20 people participating, you can do this like with pen and paper. You don't have to do it with automation. So the first group are the people who showed up. Actually, there's 4. Sorry, there's a 4th group. The first group is the people who showed up and bought, right? So the people who bought or signed up for your consult, you want to have wonderful congratulations, super excited to fulfill on this, can't wait to see you. You want to have something like that. The next bucket is the people who showed up to the webinar, but they didn't buy, right? So for those that didn't buy, you might want to have a follow-up sequence for them because they saw the offer, they saw the opportunity, they didn't take it for some reason. So for the follow-up, you can do a few things. One, you can follow up with multiple emails, giving them additional reasons to say yes and to resolve maybe some of the objections that they had that were causing them to say no. You can send those follow-up emails. That works super great. The other thing that works super great, if you're looking for just like, Amanda, I like the quick and dirty version. I get it. You got to start somewhere. But the other thing you can do is you can say, hey, I noticed you didn't sign up. And I was just curious, what would I have had to say or what would I have done that would have been of higher service, right? You can ask that question, right? Because they saw the offer, they saw the opportunity. And you're going to hear really interesting things. You're going to hear things like, I don't have any money to put into coaching right now. Okay, fair enough. Not everybody has money to put into coaching right now. That's okay, right? You don't have to like contort and fold yourself into pretzels trying to appease everybody at every single stage, right? The offer is right for the people it's right for. Does that make sense? You might even hear though, like confusion about your offer. So for example, I don't think that and they tell you something totally different than what you actually pitched, then it gives you an opportunity to clarify what it was, but it also gives you an opportunity to revisit, how did they get that out of what I said, right? Now, this is really interesting. You remember earlier in today's live, I was saying like 80% confirmation, 20% new information. Very often when people are listening, they're not really listening, right? That's why I ask you guys if you take notes. Because if you're taking notes, you're really listening, right? You're really listening. You're ready to take things away from it. Most people don't listen like that. And if I hadn't said take notes, I mean, I know you take notes in every single live that you do, but like maybe there's a chance that you only did it because I reminded you and you were like, right, I'm a great student. I always take notes. The thing is like most people don't, right? So their brain is literally filling in information from what they already know when they're kind of tuning back in and catching back up. Does that make sense, you guys? Right? So I hope it does. Shout a Y in the chat if you're like, oh, you know. So asking the question about why you didn't buy, super, super powerful. Third big idea, third big segment, I should say, are the people who registered, but they didn't attend. Well, if they didn't attend, they didn't see the offer. So I wouldn't pitch the offer at them because they didn't get the value first. What I would do is I would say like, hey, we had a really awesome webinar. Here's the link for a limited amount of time. And then you would say like, and by the way, at the end, I did offer this thing. So you're kind of mentioning it, you're foreshadowing it. And I found that when you're really transparent about that sort of thing, it actually increases the number of replays that you get because they're like, they already know the answer at the end. Sometimes people have resistance and tension because they're like, I don't know what the big pitch is going to be at the end. And so I'm not going to spend time on all your valuable content, which is super annoying, coach. I get it. But if you can be transparent, here's the recording. I do recommend you do a limited time replay because I found that if you don't put a deadline on the replay, people don't prioritize it. They had a hard time prioritizing your webinar. Why would they prioritize the replay? You know what I'm saying? So, okay. And then the fourth group are the people who didn't even register. How rude. And they just like ignored the whole thing. So I would still send a note and I would still rave about how awesome your webinar was. And boy, oh boy, you wish they could be there. And just in case, here is a copy of the replay for limited time release. I wouldn't even mention the offer at this point. I'm just getting them to watch the content. And if they don't watch the content, fine, they're probably ignoring you. In general, let's not drain our energy on those folks. So that's called segmenting. That's really, really powerful for the follow-up. Okay. Last big idea. I know I'm going a couple minutes over this week, but I wanted to give you guys some gold. If this has been gold for you, shout out gold. Oh, platform I put my webinar on. I use a combination of our white label for Go High Level, which is Plaza Plus. That's where I host my reminders, my contact information, my follow-up emails, all the automation. That's in our Plaza Plus. And then the actual webinar itself, I host it on Zoom. Right? And until you get like 25 people reliably on your Zoom, you don't even need the Zoom webinar because yeah. So that's the cheap, cheerful, and awesome method. Okay. Last big idea is you want to test ideas and you want to keep refining on your best. So remember at the very beginning, I said like the webinar is a way for you to show up as your best self in a spotlight, right? But I also told you that you're going to get better and better and better and better. Some of the ways that I get better and better and better is I am an avid reader. Right now, I am reading an incredible book on like wealth and happiness and growth. So I read like a lot of personal growth and development, and that helps me. I also do growth day. So every single day I listen to the Daily Fire. I do journaling. I set my intentions for the day. I'm doing like personal development on a really like rigorous schedule. And yeah, I really recommend it. Again, shout out the word growth if you want me to send you a link to a trial of the growth day as well. But you're going to do some webinars that are going to be just like, they're going to blow your hair back for how people are registering, how they're engaging in it, how fun it is, how activated you are. Like you want to do, this is a terrible term. And I try to use a different term because I hate this one, but I never do. I always come back to this terrible term, a post-mortem. So postmortem is a review after the webinar is over. So I really encourage you to do this review. How many people did they registered? How many people showed up live? How many people took your advantage of your offer? And also, how did it feel? Like, did it feel awesome to share the topic? Did you get into like alignment? Was it like in flow for you? Like, look at all those things and catalog that every time you do a webinar. And you might want to change up the webinar. Like, here's my current cadence. Because, I like to do oldie but goodie. That's number one. New idea, new idea, new idea. Oldie but goodie. New idea, new idea, new idea. Why do I like to do that? Because I think it's important to keep testing. And I also think it's a really good idea for the health of your audience that they have kind of their favorite movies that they can return to. But you're also like adding to your encyclopedia of knowledge, your Wikipedia of what it is that you teach on your topic as your best self. You know what I'm saying? So I think you should challenge yourself to write new ones. But I also think you should make a point of bringing back the really good ones. So for example, in my business, one of my super favorite awesome webinars that I have honed over like 6 years is the planning extravaganza. Who here has been to the planning extravaganza? It's every New Year's Eve and it's like a 3-hour webinar extravaganza. And I've done it lots of different ways, but the core of it has stayed the same every year. And it gets like a huge number of signups. It gets great participation. So, that's an example of an oldie and a goodie, an oldie and a goodie. So, okay. Keep testing, keep doing the best, keep trying to beat your best, right? Because you might just find that a test blows your oldies but goodies like out of the water. Yeah, it is fun and it's productive. It's like all the things. I really enjoy that webinar too. I hope you found this live to be super awesome. We're going to wrap here, but awesome. Lynn, I saw your note on wanting the items. I've got it in the chat in Clients Over Chaos. Don't forget to join us in Clients Over Chaos. That's my free group where I am adding value every single day. And we actually have something called the Daily Spark. Yes, it was inspired by Growth Day, but the Daily Spark, where I'm sharing with you a 5-minute high vibe audio to help you stay motivated in your coaching business. So even if you have 15 minutes a day that you're working on your business, if you listen to that Daily Spark, I promise you're going to be way fired up for the next 10 minutes of work, even if you only have 15 minutes. And it's only available inside of our free Clients Over Chaos community. The last thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned today is that we are going to be doing today's awesome. We're going to have our first 5, I'm just looking here. Our first 5 club is getting together for coaching. I'm just checking the event so you know. Tomorrow. Yeah, it is tomorrow. Okay. So if you're in the first 5 club, just a reminder, we're going to be meeting tomorrow. If you're not in the first 5 club and you want to join our waiting list, just shout out in the DMs the first 5 and I will add you to our wait list so that the next time we open the doors for that coaching for a ridiculously low price per month, you can get hot seats. You can come join that community. Just say first 5 and I will add you to that wait list. Okay, y'all, I appreciate you. I'm glad you loved the presentation. Tell your friends, send it, share it, tell everybody that this is a really great walkthrough if you felt that was true. And we will see you next week, 9 a.m. for the next thing that's going to help you grow your coaching business. Now, we'll see you soon. Do what matters, okay, guys? Do what matters.